Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. Do you have a few minutes to learn about the art of the brothers Hildebrandt? Maybe you're familiar with them. I first became familiar with their art in the 1990s when they were doing a lot of artwork for Marvel trading cards. And they would eventually contribute a lot to my beloved 1994 Flair Ultra X-Men set. And in 1995, they would have an entire set illustrated just by them, the 1995 Marvel Masterpieces. Now, Tim and Greg Hildebrandt, they were born in 1939. Sadly, Tim died in 2006. Greg is still alive and doing some small projects. I'm not really sure that they're doing the kind of work they used to do anymore. But this book was published in 1979 by a man who was at that time a business partner of theirs. And they first came to prominence in this time period because Lord of the Rings was finally being published in an authorized version in the US. It was gaining a lot of popularity, and there started to be a calendar that was published every year that had Lords of the Ring artwork in it. And you have to imagine, this is a time period before the Peter Jackson trilogy. And so the interpretation of what Lord of the Rings looked like was a lot different than it was today. First, it was way more fluid in terms of individual artist's impression upon it. But Tim and Greg Hildebrandt, essentially, they were fanatics about the books, and they were starving artists. And so they one day took their giant trash bag of drawings and sketches and paintings. They went to the office of the company that published the calendar, and they dumped them all out on the floor and said, look, here's work we've done, and we love Tolkien and we love Lord of the Rings. Let us illustrate the calendars. And so for 1976, 77, and 78, the brothers Hildebrandt would illustrate the calendars. And, you know, at the time, they were also doing some other stuff like movie posters and advertisements and children's books. They would eventually go on and have some of their own projects related to art. They'd publish a book, things like that. And the thing to keep in mind with this book is it was written in 1979. So literally the year after they did their last Lord of the Rings calendar. And ultimately, the publishers of the calendar didn't want the Hildebrandt brothers to become too much of the image of Lord of the Rings. And so this book has some of their other works, some of their advertisements they did. They did some Coca-Cola advertisements. It has some other book covers they've done. And it has some essentially pretty rare works that were done by either one brother or the other, because they almost always work together, which is actually very rare among artists. So it's a really interesting book from that standpoint, and it's neat if you like the brothers Hildebrandt, if you're more familiar with their later artwork and the kind of color and lighting that they always infuse their artwork with. It's neat to look back at this. Now, like I said, it was published in 1979 after they'd done the 76 through 78 calendars. So in terms of the calendar artwork, over those 3 years, they did 42 illustrations for the calendars, but this book only has 15 of them in it. And so I'll be showing you another book next time that has more of their illustrations from the calendars in it. And one really interesting one that you will probably recognize, but didn't know you would recognize, is that 1977, the movie poster for the original Star Wars Episode 4. I'm sure you've all seen this before, but you probably didn't know that it was Tim and Greg Hildebrandt who did it. So this was something a little different. I love Tim and Greg Hildebrandt. I love their artwork. They would eventually go on. They would do artwork for Magic cards in the early 2000s. And they had all kinds of other projects. So I think there'll probably be 5 total videos about their artwork and different books that have been published about it. So let me know what you think. The first time you ever saw their artwork, were you even aware these guys existed? Let me know. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. Thanks a lot, everyone.